Teacher.
Yeah, that's as far as it goes.
All right, it is 6 o'clock. I'm going to call, my name is Kathy Manikatz. I'm the town supervisor. I'm attending by Zoom meeting. I had a meeting before this, so I appreciate everyone's patience. Watershed Council meeting before this. We'll begin in July 8th, 2020 special town board meeting. And if we could have the Pledge of Allegiance by Linda Dworza.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Can I have a roll call? Jean, if you're there, I can't see.
Councilman Gary Davis.
Present.
I can't hear you, Jean.
Can you hear us, Kathy?
Yes. I think you said me, so I'll say here. And someone's got a timer going off. Please silence your, mute your computer, please. Okay, I don't know where we left off. Did you get everyone? I couldn't hear, so I have to assume we did the roll call. All right, we're going to begin. Our next item is privilege of the floor. This pertains to the racetrack, which operates at Ontario County Fairgrounds. And the purpose of this meeting is to deal specifically with the noise issues. And each speaker will be allowed to address those issues. We have a 3-minute time limit, just so you know. So everyone is going to be given 3 minutes. And at the conclusion of that 3 minutes, a timer will go off so that everyone will have a chance to speak. We're not going to address any of the COVID issues. Those are state issues. That's a separate issue for another forum, not for here. This meeting is called to try to address the issues with regard to noise. So if anyone would like to be heard, you want to state your name, and we'll try to go down the line. Okay, the first person I see is Nancy. I'm going to mute myself, Nancy, and the timer will start now.
Okay, thank you. Nancy Yockey of Gibson Street in Canandaigua. As a city resident my entire life, I feel the need to express my concern over both the noise and potential health hazards of the dirt track racing on Town Line Road. The noise is deafening and the dust and emissions are an unknown health hazard. First, the noise. The noise is incredibly loud at my house on Gibson Street whenever the races occur. Races run often until 11 p.m., which ruins all aspects of the summer's evening for any number of city and town residents. Now it seems the races are running during the work week as well. Recent decibel readings reflect the levels of volumes that I'll describe. They were taken in June, ranging from 65 decibels in the city through 78 decibels less than half a mile from the track on Hopewell Center Road, and an astounding 88.9 decibels on Town Line Road opposite the fairgrounds. This is equivalent to standing next to a bulldozer. Even in the city, this drowns out normal conversations. The sound carries too far, too late, and too loudly. The track operates in the town, but the noise does not stop at the city and town border. The noise appears everywhere as there are no barriers that contain it, and there's no natural way to make it abate. This noise lowers the quality of life in our community, and we have traded that quality of life for marginal economic benefit. Residents in the city cannot make this noise as it violates the City of Canandaigua noise ordinance, but we allow the noise pollution just over the border to ruin our community. In reading last year's minutes of the town board meeting on this issue, it is hard for me to believe that the town is not concerned and has not addressed this issue with a noise ordinance. Perhaps members of the board wouldn't mind a bulldozer being pulled up to their house till 11 o'clock at night and running. Just have a little empathy for us in the city. Now, regarding the potential health impacts of the racetrack, which I know we're probably just dealing with noise, but what is kicked up with the dirt and the dust of this? I suppose it is one thing for people to risk their own health by attending the races and whatever dust and contaminants are kicked up by the racetrack. I suppose that's a right, but emissions of dirt, silica dust, and other pollutants are set into the atmosphere do not stop at the town border or the fairgrounds border. And think of this, since 1970, society's matured and have changed some laws to reflect the scientific data. Smoking, for instance, is no longer permitted in public places because it harms other people's lungs.
10 seconds, Nancy. I just want to
Okay, all right.
give you the heads up.
Please consider taking this issue seriously. The loudness and length of the races is not new tonight. Concerns were brought up last year, and please describe if the board has taken any action since last year to address this. Thank you.
Sorry. I'm having a little technical difficulties here, sorry. Okay, thank you very much. Next on my screen is Sylvia Hanlon. I don't know if you want to be heard, Sylvia. We have to unmute you though. Can you unmute yourself?
Lower left-hand corner, Sylvia. There should be a mute button.
Okay,
Okay.
there you go. Got it.
All right, your
Uh,
timer's going to start now too.
Thank you, Kathy. Yes, I would like to support and agree with everything that Nancy and Mike Yaki said and offered in their the first statement. But I just want to say I live 2.7 miles from on Gibson Street, number 69 Gibson Street, from the racetrack. And we have lived here for 44 years now. Yes, 44 years. And we have always heard the racetrack. It's been a yearly thing. And frankly, when we moved in here, we were kind of surprised of the noise. But it was not like it is now. It was always the racetrack. It was always a Saturday. And now we've heard it several times a week. And it's so loud. I have no air conditioning in my house. I have my windows open. I live in a big old house. And I can't hear my television when the windows are open when that racetrack is going. Now that's like, well, okay, it's, it's a problem. But if I want to watch my television, I have to shut all my windows and, it's 88 degrees. So I think that's not going to work. So yes, I would like to see perhaps the noise level addressed and the length of time that it is and the number of times during the week for sure. It's something that a segment of the culture enjoys, and I'm sure that, that there are things that we enjoy that perhaps other people would complain about. But, and another thing, I've been in the past at CMAC and had the show compromised because of the noise coming from the racetrack. And I'm surprised that that hasn't been brought up by CMAC. So there are things there is no boundary. I know you didn't want to address COVID, but it's just like that. It's noise. It comes past all barriers. So anyways, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Mm-hmm.
Next I don't know, Jeff, you're coming up as Jeff Owner. Would you like to be heard? You're also on mute, so. Okay, I don't know if people realize that they're all muted. Okay, next person I have is Frida. Would you like to be heard, Frida? All right, Doug, I don't know if you want, okay, Michael, you seem to have unmuted yourself, so we will listen, we'll take you next if you're willing to do that.
Yes, thanks. And I can kind of keep this fairly short. For those of you, by the way, that find yourselves muted, it's in the lower left-hand corner. You just need to click the little microphone in the lower left hand and that will unmute you. Let me just suggest that back in the 50s, racing happened during the day, and that activity, actually, racing happens all across the country during the day. I was just going to, make a suggestion that, I don't think any of us want to ruin the economics of racing or deny people their right to a livelihood or even what they consider to be fun. But as Sylvia said, this goes on. It's really loud and it goes on very, very late at night. So perhaps this could end at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. I'm hard pressed to find why the races can't start at 2 in the afternoon and go till 5 or 2 until 6. Mr. Cole, the track promoter last year, described the economic benefit of having the races in our town, saying that it brings people to restaurants and hotels, whether or not that is true, but it's certainly that economic benefit doesn't change if these races ended a little earlier. If anything, it might give more of an opportunity for people to visit restaurants and hotels. An earlier race schedule, it wouldn't destroy the business of the track, and it certainly would allow a little quality of life for residents of the town and the city. I mean, I think, I'm not sure how this has gotten so loud, but it is, really disruptive of everyday life. And that's all. I can surrender my remaining time to whomever.
All right, thank you very much, Michael. I'll come back to Jeff Owner, see if you have anything to say. And if you need to unmute, you go to your bottom left, put your mouse over the bottom left and you'll see a microphone. All right, I have someone here, G user. Would you like to be heard? And if you could state your name. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm Mike Murphy, Daily Messenger.
Oh, hi, Mike.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very
You're
good.
G user.
Yeah. And I'm just listening, so.
Okay, thanks very much. Next, I have someone who's identified as S. Would you like to be heard? And you'll have to unmute yourself as well. Okay, and if you can't figure it out, and we can come back to you as well. Okay, next on my screen is Jim. I don't know if that's Jim Fletcher or another Jim, but if you'd like to be heard, please feel free. All right, Eric, I assume that you do not want to be heard. Next is Pam and John. I don't know if that's Pam from our office.
Hi.
Oh, no, it's not. Hi, go ahead.
Pam Thompson, 105 Gibson Street, right near Wood. And I didn't prepare anything.
That's okay.
But I would agree with everything we've already heard. A year and a half ago, I moved around the corner from Hubble Street to Gibson, and I was shocked at how much louder those races are. We're a family that goes to bed early and gets up early, and to have to lay in bed and listen to that racetrack go round and round and round for an hour is very annoying. So again, in the city, we have a noise ordinance, and I would hope that the town would consider that same noise ordinance when people in the city can hear that noise. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Next, I have Steve Ovens. Would you like to be heard, Stephen Ovens? You'll have to unmute yourself. Okay, thank you. I don't know if you guys can see that, but just listening. Thanks very much. Pam P, that's Pam from the town, I'm assuming. Next, I have Rosemary Burnett. Again, you'll have to unmute yourself if you'd like to say something. Okay, Rosemary's not unmuting herself, but we can come back if you want to be heard. Jeannie Phillips. Okay, thank you, Rosemary. Also just listening. Jeannie Phillips, would you like to be heard? All right, I'll move along to Jody Kaufman, or Kaufman. I apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly. Thank you very much.
That's okay. Rick and I live on the west side of the lake, near you, as you know, and we're always curious when we hear the racetrack on a Saturday night, what the town people think, because we can hear it, and although it wouldn't be enough to, I guess, suppose complain about, I always say, I wonder what people think who live closer to the racetrack, and so that's why we came on to hear the other comments. So thank you for conducting this forum.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, I think that I've covered everyone that's on Zoom. If there's anyone that wants to be heard, please feel free. Otherwise, I don't know if we have anyone in town hall that wants to be heard.
Yeah, Kathy, if we could, the people that are here in the room, if you could just go to the podium, that way the people on Zoom can see you and the microphone will pick you up. And so Kathy, just so you know, there's about a half a dozen people here.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start, as soon as you start speaking, I'll start the timer.
All right. Thank you. Casey Cunes from the Ontario County Fair, the owner of the premises there. Many of the town board members and officials got a letter from us kind of stating our views, and they're all aware that racing has been going on for probably 60 years there, long before there was any residents within the area. And stock car racing, we've been told on how economic driver that it is, and employs up to 50 people, and there's a lot of give back from the racetrack into the community. But at the same point, we do want to be good neighbors, and it's been good to hear some specifics. We hadn't heard a lot of specifics up until now, and there might be some things that we could address. This year has been very unusual, I think, as everybody would know, which has resulted in some scheduling changes and some weekday running that doesn't, that hasn't been very prevalent, but is something that has happened in the past. As that business tries to get back up running within the rules that are out there, that are ever changing as well. So, we would like to work with the community to help address some of these things and remain a good partner with them and the town. But we also have to make sure that the racetrack is able to operate in these conditions like they have for the past 60+ years.
Are we able to ask Casey questions at this point?
Really, I mean, it's up to you guys and Kathy how you want to run it. I mean, normally we would do the presentations and then there would be an opportunity for questions, but it's really up to you guys.
We can wait. I just would, going back and forth to the microphone if I might want to do it. That's fine. I'm waiting.
Okay, I didn't hear all that. Was there a discussion about whether to ask questions or?
I'm going to hold questions for a little bit.
Okay,
I do have a question, Kathy.
I think we're going to do, was it for Mr. Coons, your question?
Yes.
I think we're going to do a Q&A after everyone gets a
Okay.
chance to speak. That's my understanding. Okay, who do we have next?
Dave Stoddard.
All right,
I live at 5540 Bristol Road, about 5 miles from the racetrack. I kind of agree with everyone who's mentioned the issues on Zoom. And when we talk about 60 years of racing, we talk about a document that has been operating under since 1986. You can correct me if I'm wrong. A lot's changed in this community since 1986, and the noise now is unbearable. I mean, I've been close to the racetrack. I ride my bicycle a lot, and if you're ever riding your bicycle along Ontario pathways, you could almost go deaf. I mean, 140 decibels is what a jet engine takes off at. I wonder how loud that is. I know Nancy said 90 decibels. That's just deafening from that standpoint. My concerns are both the noise, and I think without question that the town really needs to look at doing an environmental impact study to look at both noise and silica, what that dust puts up, what that racetrack puts up in the air in terms of dust. And the Ontario Fairgrounds manager or owner or whatever talked about the economics of that. I would also like to see an economic impact study as well, because I think that's really overstated from the standpoint that if the races start at 5 o'clock and end at 11, where are people spending money? They're not. I don't see race cars in hotels and all that. And no one, I don't think anyone here is saying we want to curtail racing. What we're looking at is a new document for them to operate under. And maybe, as Mike Yockey said, between 5 and 6 ending, I think that's a nice step to look at. How can we balance this between people who, I'd be happy if they never raced again, but I understand people who like to race. So how do we balance that? That's on you guys to figure that out. But the noise is incredible. I mean, I think everyone in this room has heard it through their windows. So you can't live in the town or the city without hearing that. So those are my thoughts. I think the town's obligated to really investigate both from an environmental and economic standpoint what the racetrack brings to the table. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Do we have anyone else?
Kathy, hang on one second. Anybody?
Yep.
Yeah, Kathy, we have somebody coming up. So.
Good evening, Wendy Ruggles. I live on Swamp Road in Hopewell. I am a mother and wife to my daughter and husband who race. I support racing 100% because it kept my daughter off the streets. It kept her out of bars. It kept my husband out of bars. There's so many race car drivers, male, female, young, old, that if there's nothing to do in town, they're gonna drink. They're gonna get in trouble. Also, they talk about the noise. I live in Hopewell and can hear boats on Canandaigua Lake that are just as loud. I mean, our society needs something to do. Kids, they look up to race car drivers. They look up to my daughter, a female driver. People don't understand that racing is a family. I've been racing with my husband for over 30 years. My daughters both have grown up around racing. Our friends' children who grew up around racing are now racing themselves. I know they talk about it being loud, but there's a lot of loud stuff. The concerts are loud. If you talk to people on Lincoln Hill, they're talking about having the races early. You want to talk about dust? Try having a race during the day, because you know what? The dust is going to be twice as much as it is at night because of the sunshine, because of the heat index. They think that there's dust now, double that. And really, we've been getting done before 11 o'clock. And you know, I don't know what to say. The weekend shows that they've had done before around 9:30. I mean, I understand that people go to bed early and stuff like that, but what else are people gonna do? What are our kids gonna do? Would you rather have them squealing their tires on the streets, Bristol Street, Main Street? Because some kids like to go fast on the racetrack, not on the road. Gives an option for our kids. And like we said before, the track's been there a long time.
10 seconds.
I'm all done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Kathy, I think we have one more. Did you want?
Okay.
No. No. How about you, sir? No. Paul. And then Kathy, Paul Cole, the track promoter.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. And of course, Paul Cole, the promoter and president at Land Legends Raceway. We've been doing this now for 3 years. The track's been there since 1953. This has been certainly a most unusual year for everyone. And I'm actually kind of not surprised that it sounds louder this year. And that's for a couple different reasons. And none of them are related to the racetrack directly. The same cars have been operating there for the last several years with the same muffler requirements in order to meet the state requirements. So we don't make that extra noise. We've had that agreement with the town, I believe, since 1976, including being done by 11 p.m. Only during my tenure once did we get past that. We certainly discussed that last year, and we don't want to revisit that. Our goal is to be done as early as possible. When I operate, it's an hourly event. You know, when I have employees there, I'm paying them by the hour. I would certainly like the show to be done sooner and faster, but we have to be respectful to the process. The other thing that is, you know, people have asked about that time frame. Not only is dust a major concern during the day, so is the sunlight. When that sun kicks the dust up, those cars that are going that fast will run into a cloud of dust, and is extremely dangerous. We have to be very cognizant of what time we start, so that the sun is not in the sky at the wrong time, which could severely impact the safety of our drivers and of the fans and attendants. So that's been, but the two things I was going to point out that have made it a little bit different this year is one, we've had a long-standing agreement with and part of our contract with the Fair Board to only have between 20 and 23 races in the season, maximum 25 scheduled. We usually lose at least 2 or 3. Last year we lost 7 to rain because we cannot race when it rains. So our schedule is put out, and in an agreement with the contract is to have that schedule put out in February. Unfortunately, due to the major changes that happened this year with the state of the society, almost the entire schedule had to get thrown out the window. So we couldn't even start operating until June. So we had to make some adjustments to try to stay solvent. But typically we would have that schedule out for the Fair Board and for all the citizens long in advance. Unfortunately, as we went to the printer, it was at the printers waiting to be printed when they started shutting things down. So we actually did not print any physical schedules this year. But that is something we do try to get out in the community early and want to make sure that they have the opportunity for that. The second part with the noise is 2 things. With as much of society has been shut down, manufacturing, retail, other businesses, there's a lot less ambient noise in the area. So when the only thing you hear is one thing, it's going to sound louder. Additionally, we've had no fans for almost all of those races. They absorb quite a bit of the noise that comes off the track as well. So both those things have caused more noise to travel because there's nothing else going on. If all the industries and the restaurants and the other operations were happening in the city, that sound wouldn't travel quite as well. It would be muted, and it would be kind of part of the symphony instead of the solo. And I certainly recognize that. We try to do whatever we can to be done as early as possible. We had 2 midweek shows we added in order for the economics to work. We had to use our pay-per-view with no fans. And people are not sitting home on the weekends. The pay-per-view is what we had to work with in order to try to stay solvent. But we made a target of being done by 9:30 on those Tuesday and Wednesday night that we ran. One night we were done at 9:10. The other one we were done at 9:43. And we are cognizant. I'm a neighbor. I live in a village. I live next to people. I certainly understand what it means. But we also have the situation where this racetrack's been there since 1953. And it's become a fiber of the community. We have a lot of businesses here locally that support and receive support from the track, where, you know, they sponsor us because our clientele comes in and comes to their business. We're a member of the Tourism Association here locally, in an effort to help bring more people to the community. Some of the races we schedule are designed just that way, so that we bring people in to work, use the local hotels, visit the wineries, bring, you know, their kids and go to Roseland Water Park. And a lot of it is symbiotic. It's not one-sided. It's the effort of working together. And the other thing I instituted when we came into Canandaigua Speedway is something that most tracks have never done, and that's we share our 50-50 money. Our 50-50 money is all set to the community.
See, I'm gonna stop you because you've gone over 3 minutes. I know people are gonna want to ask you some questions, so we can continue this discussion. And we're gonna have to keep continuing the discussion, but in terms of this format of this meeting, I think we're gonna try to do a Q&A now. So if you and Paul want to be available to answer some questions, that would be very helpful. I think we question from Nancy.
Kathy,
Yeah,
I don't know if any of the town board members, you want to start with any questions that they may have?
sure. Do any of our town board members have any questions?
If you do, turn your microphone on so that this will pick it up, so that Zoom, so that everybody will be able. So maybe just we'll try one at a time, and hopefully we won't get feedback if anybody has any questions. No?
All right, great. So I was reviewing the document from 1986. It talks about a certain type of muffler, and it talks about measuring the output of the cars at a certain distance to see how loud they are. Do you guys do that on a regular basis, like every race?
Yes, it's part of the tech. They have to pass tech in order to be able to operate with us. One of the few cars that actually has that issue is one of our traveling sprint car series that comes in, and that's one thing they're required before they're even allowed to go on the track, is that they have to show that approved muffler is on there and we can test it.
And so you have some sort of decibel readings for all the cars that race there?
For the most part, yes. I mean, they're all stock cars. They have a tech that's required, and the mufflers is something that many tracks don't require. We do require it, so there are tracks that
Well, it's
don't.
part of the agreement, so.
Right, but even so, even if it wasn't part of the agreement, I think it's good business, because same thing. We do have fans, we do have people out there, and although it curbs the performance a little bit from the cars, we do require it.
Well, when everybody has the same muffler and you're all with the same drawback or curbing,
Typically,
so
yes.
that would be a fair.
Right, typically, so it doesn't hurt her, but the thing is if somebody was to not have it on, they would have a distinct advantage, and that's something that does get technical both before and after the race.
And are there additional mufflers that you could bump up to instead of just the one with the 100 decibels?
Not typically, and I don't know where the 100 decibels comes from, but I think is what it says in the
That's what the agreement
agreement
says.
says, yeah, but I'm not sure if it's spelled out that was exactly it, but yes. There really aren't any other mufflers per se that fit that, but I would believe that the muffler is probably less than 100.
Yeah, 100 decibels to be measured
At 21 feet.
no, I think the agreement says they have to be measured at the boundary of the property. Right.
But decibels as a rating they're rated at 21 feet from the item. They're 7 meters.
Well, but the
Right.
agreement says you have that
Right.
property,
I understand that.
which is quite some distance away
Sure.
from where you're racing.
Sure,
So that noise level grass is a square of the distance. So
exactly.
And so do you ever measure the decibels at the property line? Do you know what it is?
I haven't since I've been there, because when I took over the facility, the same cars have been operating there for the better part of 15 years or more. The same types of exact cars that are there, and we hadn't had any complaints.
So you're saying that it's 88 decibels, 20 feet away from the 21 feet away from the car? Is that what-
Decibels are rated at 7 meters. That's the standard. And I actually sell generators for a living, and that's what we rate everything on decibels.
That number at 7 meters.
7 meters.
Is less than 5.
Yeah.
So it's property boundary, it's going to be.
But that's one car.
Correct. Correct.
So they add together.
But that would be a symphony. With the level of the sound wouldn't be any higher. It would just be more of them together.
Not an additive.
Yeah, they don't compound on top of each other. They just sing together.
Yeah,
So the
just-
difference
I
between a
guess
solo.
I'm wondering about just, are the measurements being taken so that?
We do check that they have the approved level muffler on there.
You, water the track between the racers, between each,
The track needs to be watered in order for it to be, raceable. Obviously, the drier it is, the dustier it is, and that's not good for our fans or for the drivers. So we do start out. We water it all day. Like this week, as dry as it is, they will water all day tomorrow. They'll water all day on Friday. Or I should say, the evenings on Thursday, the evening on Friday. We'll water all day on Saturday. And then when racing starts, we'll come back out, we'll put more water down to put spritz down, we'll put another one at the intermission. And that's typically, by that point in time, the sun is down and the dust is much more limited.
what is your schedule going forward?
Right now, our schedule for this season is mostly all Saturdays that remain. We have a tentative schedule for a Tuesday race to make up for the one we lost last week. But I don't believe that's going to come off. It's just my prediction. We have another that was during Fair Week. That's why we usually take that week off. So we're off that Saturday. Same thing. We had a show scheduled for Thursday in the middle of August. That was part of Watkins Glen weekend. Same thing. We were working with Watkins Glen to help bring a lot of people from the Watkins Glen area up to spend money in the Canandaigua region. Watkins Glen just canceled actually NASCAR took the show to Daytona. Which is going to be a huge economic impact to the entire region, not only Watkins Glen, but a lot of the hotels and stuff in this area as well, because a lot of people would stay here and travel down. People would come in and they would camp here, the local campgrounds, which a lot of people do. A lot of people come to this area and, stay in the local campgrounds, they use the local restaurants, they go to the Walmart, they go to the grocery stores. So that's certainly going to be a major impact. We got to look and see what we're going to do with that race, because there was supposed to be a traveling series coming in that Thursday. It was going to bring in some of the NASCAR stars with it. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, but all the rest of our Saturdays through to into September, we raced up to the Labor Day of Saturday of Labor Day, and then we have one special show later in the month. Our contract with the fair goes from April 1st through to September 30th for racing, so we don't typically go past that. Again, this being odd, I doubt we will go past that because the weather's too sketchy. And a lot of other things are happening in the community that, again, we don't want to butt up against it. We do spend a lot of time as we look at that calendar to see what other things are going on in the community. We don't want to overwhelm the community with too many things at one time. We do check with the fair board about other things that are going on at the fairgrounds. We do look at see what other things are going on, like in the steam pageants in town. Because there's other things that are going on. We want everybody to be successful.
So between now and you said you'll end around Labor Day that weekend?
Right now the schedule off the top of my head is July 11th, July 18th. The 22nd was our rain date for the one we just moved back. I believe that's not going to come off, but I'm not going to say 100% yet. We haven't made a final determination. We're off July 25th which would have been for the fair. We then race August 1st, August 8th. We're tentatively planned for August 13th, August 22nd, August 29th, September 6th, and then the one show September 18th or 19th, whichever that is. That's what the current schedule would be as it goes.
Sounds like perhaps two during the week, Matt.
Perhaps. And one was a makeup that would have been in midweek, and the other one was a midweek that was aimed to work in conjunction with Watkins Glen. And part of that is because the traveling series can't race on Saturdays because of the regular racing that happens on tracks where those cars have to come from.
The comment that we made about starting earlier, we talked about dust in the air and water, try to keep the dust on. Yeah, but is there, what is the answer about that?
Terry, can you speak into the microphone? We can't hear you.
Paul, could you just repeat it for us?
Yeah. What's magic about starting at the 7 o'clock time frame? It's the two things. One, we have to start with a period window where we can get the sun down far enough in the sky. Being up high, the racing is extremely dangerous. The back in the 70s or 50s, 60s, when they used to race on during the days, the cars were all full fender, and they were all, designed on a track where they would actually they would almost divert the water right off the outlet into it. So it'd be very, very heavy and clumpy. And that was a different type of cars that exist now are way more expensive. Obviously, people used to wreck a car, they'd go and pull another one out of the junkyard, tune it up and go out. Now we have roll cages, we have, a lot of suspension issues and things like that, where that type of track not only eats cars, but it hurts people. And that's not how racing should be. And same thing, we don't want to hurt fans just the same. When there's clumps of mud on the track, that also comes up. And, just like the dust would, those clumps can come up, they can hurt people too. We're very conscious that the type of clay we just put down, it came right off the property. It's been there for 50, 70, 100 years, whatever however that clay that's been there. And it doesn't have rocks in it. It has a lot of meaning to being able to provide good racing. But also, I actually believe the dust has actually been a little bit less this year, despite as much heat as we've had. We've done a pretty good job of maintaining that and keeping it down. Typically the car washes that have been building up here in local would get a lot of benefit from that. But they really hasn't been much car wash needing after the races.
Can I make a point?
I just want to make sure no more town board members have questions, then we'll go to the
Kathy, we
audience.
have one more town board member.
Yep.
Or two more town board members.
Okay.
Oh, no, on the, during the week when you, have the races, are they less numbers?
Gary, can you pull the microphone just a little closer?
Do you have less numbers of races when you?
Yeah, typically, so both the shows that we've had during the weeks have been what I call 2-class shows. Whereas during the weekend we have 5 classes. So I think one show we had 56 cars, the other one we had 50 or 42, 50, I'm sorry, 49. On a regular average night, we average about 105 to 110 cars of the different classes. And it does take a little longer to go through. That's why we keep those on the Saturdays. And the other part of the economics is that all these people work. For them to leave their jobs, a lot of them work on Saturdays as well, and leave their businesses, because a lot of them are business owners. They couldn't necessarily get there in the afternoon either. That could substantially limit the number of people that could attend. It actually used to race on Sundays. That's when Canada Speedway originally started. They raced on Sundays because everybody would be off, and they would start at noon. A lot of history to that. But it's a much different time.
But you have the same number of, start at the same time for the races during the week?
We would still adjust the stuff to start at the same time. Like the latest we've started at 7:30. And that was just basically because that was the hottest day of the year, it was the longest day of the year. We need to get that sun to come down. And that night we were done at 9:43. And that includes, having probably a 35-minute intermission in the meantime to water, and so it wasn't a constant running for that period of time either.
Yeah, because I looked up your schedule on the computer, and I only could get July up, and I saw with the 22nd during the week that you were supposed to have a race.
That was just an adjustment off of moving one last week, due to limitations for fans. So we're unfortunately this year, almost all bets are off. There's nothing normal about 2020 other than 2-0 in a row. There's been much normal about 2020. We've had to make adjustments on the fly quite a bit. We're trying to be respectful. We're trying to be polite. We're trying to be good neighbors, but we do need to be able to pay the lease and the insurance and stay operable just so we can get through this year and hopefully start with a fresh 2021.
Thanks.
Paul, one question that I had dealing with the noise issues. Have you looked at anything for noise remediation?
Jared, is your mic on? I can't hear you.
He asked about noise remediation, if we looked at anything to do that. Typically, there are trees all the way around. So actually adding a wall would cause more of a reflection. And then there's also a limit to what we would be able to put up as far as height. Noise travels in a straight line. So even if let's try putting a dome over the entire place, which would be economically not feasible.
nor safe, and we have other environmental hazards and concerns that we would have. That's really not that productive. Again, certainly if we had more people there and more things going on in the community, the noise would be less noticeable. I'm not saying it's be any less, it'd be less noticeable. And there are nights, when we have a cloud cover, sometimes it bounces a little bit more. When it's a clear night and it travels less. The humidity can change it. There's a lot of weather factors that can change the operations of what's going on. And and same thing with if there's a CMAC concert going on, again, it's probably less noticeable to a good part of the community. And we're cognizant that, again, we try to be good neighbors with them as well. They also create noise. They also try to operate within that 11 o'clock time frame, which is exactly what we attempt to do. There are also places across the state where they run till midnight, 1 o'clock, no curfew. I don't think it's responsible either. And and I thought 11 o'clock was a good agreement in our day and age, where we try to be good neighbors.
Do you think 11 o'clock on the weekend is a good idea, but maybe earlier on a weekday is better? Why? Because people do work.
I do understand that you said 11 o'clock during the week versus a weekday. I do understand that. That's why we try to stay cognizant of that. One of the reasons we run into a situation every now and then is if there's an accident that happens on the track, and we've had people travel in, for instance, for this traveling series. If there's an accident on the track, we may lose half an hour to 40 minutes of cleaning up the track, maybe having to wait for an ambulance. So having that flexibility, we don't want to be there any later in the weekend. And I guarantee you, most of the people that are coming for a midweek show, they're getting up to go home to go to work too. They don't want to be there any later than we would. And that's why we limit the number of midweek shows we tend to have. In this case, the two kind of stood out this year because we were making up for April and May, where no shows, we couldn't even practice with one car on the track during the month of April and May. So it became a little bit noticeable. And again, it's that thing you don't really think about. Nothing else is making noise. There's no ball games going on. There's no kids out playing. There's no the boats were limited on the because the marina was still taking them out of the fairgrounds. There's a lot less going on. It becomes more noticeable. And of course, just like anything, it's that first clean hit of the year. Our first race this year was right in that early part of June.
All right, I don't think anybody else on the board does. So we're going to do something that technically we don't have to do. So I'm going to limit the questions from the public to 3 minutes also, unless someone else has another idea of that. But in order to facilitate those Q&As, we'll leave those to 3 minutes as well. So I think, Nancy, you've been
Yes. Thank you.
patiently. Go ahead.
2020 is an unusual year with lots of things, but I don't think the noise from the track is unusual. This is an ongoing problem since way back. I've made I don't know if complaint is the right word, or my feelings known to the town before about this. It's not a new problem. And even if there's no one in the stands or there's full stadium full of people out there, it doesn't make a difference. It's still loud. It's no less loud with the people sitting there. It's just unbearable. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question for either Casey or Paul?
Sylvia has her hand up.
I'm sorry. Someone else has a question. Sylvia? You're muted though,
Sylvia,
Sylvia,
you're muted.
and you're gone. You have to unmute yourself.
In the bottom corner. Can you unmute her?
She's got to unmute herself.
Now we lost.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, I'm all right. Okay, so a couple of points. The gentleman who spoke first,
That was Mr. Cole.
Mr. Cole, yes. He made a mention, and I don't know if I heard it, the microphone is very difficult to decipher, on the Zoom thing. So, but he made a mention that this racetrack goes back 60 years and predates a lot of people moving in the area. Well, we are at the edge of the city, kind of where we live here on Gibson Street. And my house was built in 1829. Not that I was built in 1829, but but the thing is that people were living here then and tolerating it. And so I just have I just disagree with that. I think that things have changed in the years that I have lived here, which is numbers to 44 now. So, you know, since 1975 we've lived here, and I remember the sound of the motors, and now the engines are even louder, especially when the Outlaws are in town. When they come to town, it's so loud. Like I said, I can't talk to my neighbor next door. It's just crazy. The other thing, I don't think that any of us want any more economic disaster to happen anywhere, especially in our city. So it's not so much a matter of shutting down races. I have no problem with people wanting to support that sport. However, it's about the proximity of the racetrack to the city, and the fact that I know the decibels are checked, but I wonder if anybody would ever be willing to come down here and hold up the the decibel measuring guide and just see what the decibels are right here in our neighborhood, because it is unreal. And yes, it does vary with the weather and the wind and all that, but across the board, I have to say it is, if it's Saturday night, you can't plan on doing anything here. And you need to really think about it when it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday. You never know when it's going to hit. So that's I think the problem. It's the proximity of the noise, and I'm not sure how that could ever be resolved. I don't know what's close to Lancaster Speedway, but I know that that's right up on the thruway, so nobody thinks about the noise there. But perhaps there are neighbors there who do. I'm not sure. But I'm just wondering if there would be a location that wouldn't be right
10
on top of
seconds,
the
Sylvia.
city. Yeah, and that's all. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a question?
Just like to answer a couple of Sylvia's points. Certainly there are a number of tracks that are right in downtown areas. Outlaw Speedway in Dundee literally is right downtown. Their curfew is 1 a.m. Albany Saratoga Speedway is right in downtown Malta. Their curfew is midnight. Orange County in Middletown is also midnight. They actually apply for exceptions to go past midnight on occasion. Most of the rest of them are somewhat limited from the edge of the community, and we're probably about the steep distance to 4 or 5 other tracks that are outside of the community, like Weedsport, for instance. And then we have not had the Outlaws, and I don't think the Outlaws have been there probably in 10 years or more. So it's been quite a long time, and they would be one that they would try to get an exception to the muffler rule. And again, that's a non-working piece. We were required to put the mufflers on too if they were to come in.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? Michael.
Let me just make a quick analogy here. I mean, in many ways, this is, if you remember back in the old days when they used to have a non-smoking section in a restaurant and then a smoking section in a restaurant. And frankly, you couldn't tell the smoke where to go. The smoke went wherever it was going to go. And eventually folks came to realize that creating an arbitrary barrier doesn't actually stop the problem. They actually had to create laws that said you just can't smoke in restaurants. This is really the heart of the issue, is that you cannot control the sound. I think all of us appreciate that, people like to race. That's fine, but we also should have the right to at least a reasonable amount of peace and quiet at a reasonable time of day. I mean, I don't think we're asking for all that much to say, if you can't make it stop, then move it ahead an hour or two. Give us a break. Give us a compromise. And I think it's Mr. Cole. You've said several times you want to be good neighbors, but frankly, I've not heard a single thing that is even remotely approached a solution. Everything you've said is that, well, we can't do anything about it. We water the track, and well, we do this, and we can't do the sunlight. Okay, those are problems, but I'm not hearing anything like a solution. And, you know, we sit here and we suffer, and it hasn't been just this year. We've called any number of times over the years just to say, what is going on and how can this be happening? And everybody kind of hems and haws and says, well, it's outside of the city. We can't stop. I agree. We can't, you can't make the noise just stop at the line. You can't make the noise stop at the fairground, but can you, and I have to look to Mr. Cole and Mr. Coombs and the folks who are somewhat expert in this field. There has to be a way to control the noise, or else there has to be a reasonable solution. I'm not able to think of one other than maybe you start a little earlier and end at a reasonable time. But if there's any kind of solution that can make it tolerable in our neighborhoods, I think we'd certainly be open to it. I'm not hearing the solution. I'm just hearing excuses as to why you can't fix it. And that's, frankly, we've been putting up with it for a lot of years. And I think, you know, many folks have complained. We've been told we're not the only ones. And I think perhaps if this had been in any different year, maybe more folks would have showed up or could have made the case even more broadly. Thank you. I guess that if there's a question, it's what can be done? I mean, what are other folks doing other than, if other communities tolerate it, that's their issue. If they want to listen to it up till 1 in the morning, that's not a solution as to how we can quiet the noise in our neighborhoods and how you can help protect the folks in the city.
All right, thank you.
Certainly our, you know, we will make every effort we can, just as we do every year, to give you as much heads up as when we're operating, you know, and what our expected timeframes and schedules are. You know, we're more than happy to build whether it's contact us, let us know you like our schedule. When we make schedule changes, we'd love to be able to send an email to everybody that's interested and concerned. You know, not everybody follows our Facebook page or our website, but you know, we do everything we can to try to be informed. You know, part of the shock is not expecting something. You know, so whenever we can to be more proactive on providing information, that's something that I know we can do and we will be willing to do. And we have typically tried to do. And just the same, you know, in our agreements with the Fair Board, you know, we limit the number of nights of racing to a number that we can afford to keep the business, you know, viable. You know, we're not looking to race every night of the week. We're not looking to race, you know, multiple times a week, although it happens on occasion. You know, we're not having 6 days of racing that you know, some places, some tracks have. You know, Eldora out in Indiana, or I'm sorry, Ohio, they have a week where they race 6, 7, 8 times in a row. And that's certainly not something we want to do. It's certainly not something that's in our plans. And you know, again, that there's balance, and sometimes there's things we can do, and when we can, we try to address them, including, like I said, putting the water down and being conscious of trying to get the show in and done as soon as possible. There'll be very few times you'll find us dragging the show on that's not in our control. Our race team, our race officials are very, very meticulous about, let's get this in, let's get this done, let's get in. Let's, you know, when the cars are rolling off the track, cars are rolling on the track, so we don't have, you know, it dragging out for hours on end. And there are tracks that do that. You know, they always stop and take an hour intermission so people can buy hot dogs. Not worried about hot dogs. People will buy them when they're hungry. Our goal is to get the show, get it done, get home.
Okay, do you have any other questions from anyone?
But we've got one in the room, Kathy. It's just got to come up to the microphone so we.
Okay.
Dave, if you could just repeat it. Sorry.
It's like we have 12 Saturday nights in the summertime. And when you went through your schedule, it seems like every Saturday night there's a race. And if there's no solution to the noise, can you limit the number of Saturday nights that you race? I mean, that's the only other solution. Instead of having 12 races or 15 races, you would have 6. I mean, that doesn't seem like an economic solution to me, but it seems like you would try to find some way to reduce that noise.
Unfortunately, for the entire length of our contract, there's only 24 Saturday nights. And so we're limited to, and then you reduce that again by the number of times we have rain. There are other tracks that operate that we can't necessarily compete with and take cars from, in order to be economically viable. So you kind of build your niche for the racing industry per se. And that's why we do try to break it up. So like, for instance, when the fair is in town, we'll move to a Wednesday night if we can and help make money for the fair. We will run, not run on that Saturday. Like this week when we ran on Thursday, we took Saturday off. Because we're trying to limit those back-to-back shows. They're not good for economics, they're not good for the noise, and they're not good for the community. So through the course of the summer, you would probably see, this year would have been I think 4 Saturdays off, from June to the end of August. So we kind of that. We also have families that work at the track. We have people that have lives and want to go on vacations, and we try to build that into the process as well. So that's part of the equation. It's not just one-sided, but unfortunately, the way the system, the way the racing industry is, you have a regular beat night, and if we only scheduled 10 shows and took 6 Saturdays off, we might be unlucky enough to have those 10 shows rain out. And rain may not be all day. Rain might be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or in the morning, enough that the rest of the day is nice, but not enough for us to be able to operate. Because when the clay gets wet, it's slick and slippery, and it's not conducive for racing. It's very dangerous. So we don't race when there's rain. Like I said, last year we had 8 shows that were affected by rain, and so that would have been effectively 8 Saturdays of the 16 we had last year, or 17 we had last year, that we wouldn't have been racing.
I guess I've heard a bunch of people ask the question, what is there that we can do? Not what is there that other people are doing that doesn't help our noise problem, but what could we do here in Canandaigua to help with the noise? You are an expert, so we're looking to you to say, we don't want to have to come up with something for you, but there's a lot of people suffering, and truly, I think we need to think together. How do we make it better?
I'm not sure there's a whole lot of good answers, because there's still physics and science. There are still engines that make noise, and if it was to say, okay, we want the industry to go out and manufacture a new muffler that takes it down to a much smaller level, it would take it to the point where it would be unaffordable. We would get no cars. There would be nobody here, and that would not be able to be.
But I don't know how I'm
I understand that mufflers are engineered for each and every type of vehicle. You don't pick up a muffler off of a Ford Fiesta and put it on a Chevy Silverado truck. They have different engineering components that allow this to operate. So it's not quite that simple. There's a lot to it, and the industry we're talking about racing across the Northeast, not just in one location.
Is it possible
Can you, sorry, I just can't hear you. What the?
Go all as you get, like into August.
We do that already. So yeah, because
What time do you start?
we moved up as early as 6 o'clock. That is waiting to be able to people to get home from work, people to get to the races. But we started as early as 6 o'clock because we only have one show in September. Typically, the sun is still on its way down through the month of August. But we do usually move that up as we go along.
So as you move it up, you move up the finish time too?
It would all be based on how fast we can go. Ideally, if we could start at 6 o'clock and be at 9:30, we'd be happy to. 6 o'clock at 9:40. We're not holding the show up to get an end time per se. The goal is always to get done as early as we can. Because again, I pay most of the employees hourly rates. So the longer they're there, like turn the lights on. The lights are the electric meter's running. When we have to do a variety of pieces. It's all based on hourly. So if we get the show in a shorter time and be successful and put on a good show for the fans, which it's one of the most affordable opportunities for outdoor recreation, or any indoor recreation. You know, an average couple can come to our show, and a couple with 2 kids, it's $30 for them to get in. It costs them almost 50 or 60 to go to the movies. And they get a 3 or 4 hour show and the opportunity to spend time with their friends and family and get an affordable dinner and enjoy a night out. And that's been the history of Canandaigua Speedway for decades. It's been a premier spot for people to go on dates, premier spot for families to get together. There's a whole lot of history that goes around the track. It's not just racing.
And one other question, and that is, maybe you're not the right person to ask it or answer it, in case you don't know, but you're renting the space, as I understand it. You're paying to the Ontario County Fair Association, is that correct?
The Ontario County Ag Society, right?
Tax code is on.
Correct.
Is there anybody else paying that association any money? What I'm trying to get at is this, that without you there, what happens to that entity?
I couldn't speak completely for Casey, but I know that we're a large portion of the income they get, especially with no fair this year. We're the primary, and we always are really the primary. They do receive some funding from the state, but they also get they have what German Brothers Marina has been there for quite a long time. They rent the space in the off, from September through to the spring. When people store their boats, they've been a much longer tenant than most anybody. But that's it's still not as significant as what the track pays. Plus, we provide all the maintenance for the facility, so we do all the lawn work. We provide a lot of updates to the facility. I put brand new lights in. It's been at the tune of about $60,000 to that's basically going to be a donation to the fair. We have to maintain the track, we maintain the facility, we do the bathrooms, we work the concession stand. When the fair comes in, the Rotary bar, we let the Rotary use our concession stand to make money for the fair. Rotary Lions Club. So it's a symbiotic effort to work together in order to help the agricultural society do what they do. Some of the things we do at the facility also prepare to be able to bring in the 4-H for events and other things that happen throughout the course of the year. They have a dog show. There's a lot of things that happen at the fairgrounds. In order for them to be successful, they need us to be successful.
I guess that's my question. If you're not successful, what happens to the Ontario County Fair?
That is a good question. And they are very integral to the success and the viability of the fair, these leases, and that auto lease is one of the most important ones. It certainly would have an effect on the Ag Society. It's hard to make the fair itself work by itself. We want to present to the public everything that we do there and have that opportunity for the 4-Hers and the other youth to participate and demonstrate to the public. But without that, there's so many choices in the Finger Lakes, which is great. But the county fair isn't the top choice of everybody to go to all the time, although we're looking at every angle that we can on how to reinvent. What can we offer that somebody else doesn't offer, so that we can try to stay new and adapt. But having these leases helps us be able to maintain offering these things and these opportunities for the youth to advance. And it's amazing seeing what these young people become that go through 4-H and then show at either the county or then on the state fair. A very, very important part. And having these partnerships allows us to do that. But at the same time, we want to be able to partner with the community as best as we can and still be able to maintain the viability of the people that use the facilities.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
I think we have one more person here.
So what do you pay the fair a year? Well, I mean, that's a number that we should probably be fair to know.
No, that's between Casey and I.
Yeah, that's private. It's too private.
So we have no idea what we pay.
They're all private entities.
I'm just curious because, I mean, other fairs work without racetrack, so they do okay. I mean, I don't think anyone thinks the economic driver of the town of Canandaigua or Ontario County is the fair, but it would be nice to know what you pay.
I'm not sure we're in a position to go announcing what our leases are, but I can speak to why it's important, how it's helped us, and being able to do some other things that some other fairs don't. There are several other county fairs that have other things going on, other leases, other partnerships that they have developed to keep going, that they have offerings. There are several of those. There are some that do not, that are just strictly by themselves. And typically what's happening is they keep rolling back a day. What used to be a week-long fair rolls back to 5 days and to 4 days. Some have gone to 3 days because it's hard to make it work on just presenting a fair by itself. So that's why these things are important. And by doing that, we've been able to expand, have full barns, have a lot of things going on. We pay premiums, all those sorts of things to these folks to come out and do that. But having these partnerships here, as well as others in the community that help support us, is what allows us to keep going and stay at the levels that we are.
Casey, if you just could, and Kathy, just a quick second, I'm just off camera here. One of the questions I've gotten a lot this year, I don't know why I've gotten it so much this year, but the question of, doesn't the county fund the fair? Isn't it the Ontario County Fair? Can you just address that for us real quick?
So there is no county funding in dollars. There is no line item to the fair. We get an awful lot of in-kind support. The Sheriff's Department works with us very diligently all through Fair Week, as well as some support during the off season. So we get an awful lot of support there. The county planning department has helped us a lot through some different initiatives and things that we've done. So we get a lot of support from services and staffing.
But you're not an agency of the county.
We are not an agency of the county. And mention the state, we have qualified, as every county fair has. The state has put together a grant program where they're trying to help the infrastructure of county fairs to try to keep up with what they've been doing at the state fair. So they have done that, and that's where the state money comes from, is through a grant program that is offered and taken advantage of every county fair.
Were you like a not-for-profit or what?
We are.
Like a 401c?
We are a 501c. 501c3, so a not-for-profit that way. So our funding comes from either these leases, these two leases we have here and with German Brothers, and then what we are able to do, we do have a couple other little events that have come in. There's been a dog show that has come in the last 2 years. So a few things like that we're able to do. And that, when we get all said and done, we maintain, we're a nonprofit at the end of the year when you look at the income and expenses. We just nicely make it work with these, and these leases amount to more than what the fair grosses. So they're very important to make it work and to provide these opportunities that are, I want to say, unique, that you see at a county fair, not something that you can get at other places.
May I ask?
One thing I want to add to that, there are other tracks that have similar leases. One of the reasons why I'm hesitant to, is it's still kind of a little bit of a business, privacy. Genesee County Speedway operates at the Genesee County Fairgrounds. Fonda Speedway operates on the Fonda Fairgrounds, Montgomery County Fairgrounds. Orange County operates on the Orange County Fairgrounds down in Middletown. So those four in particular, off the top of my head, are all on fairgrounds and all have similar opportunities where they lease the facility and help support the efforts the fairs have.
Jim, can you just turn your microphone off and turn it back on again? Turn it back on.
Did you mute me?
No. I think it did.
How many races do you need to be viable in the year? I mean, what's the magic number?
That magic number is that 20 to 25 races. You know, it's actually a little bit of a stretch, but we made it work. And we know full well we were going to hit a window where there's going to be rain. We're not an unusually wet year where you might lose. You know, for example, Utica Rome last year, or not last year, the year before, lost 52% of their races, and that makes it real difficult to pay their mortgage.
And then one other thing I have, right? I don't know if you've heard of defense. So I done some research prior. It's a sound absorbing fence, and I can share it with you. They use it at Atlanta Sports Park. They use it at other racetracks. So
I appreciate that.
Like it. Yep. And
The one thing to keep in mind is the fence itself would probably cost more than several years worth of leasing. So and $700 times, you know, probably 4,000 linear feet or more. That's just to do two sides. You know, you're talking, you know, well in excess of probably $250,000 to $500,000 to put up fencing, and it would only stop it from going from side to side. It would prevent it from going over the top.
Kathy, I don't think we have any more questions here, but I see some hands on the Zoom.
All right, I know some of you already asked questions, so if you could just keep it short of the fairness of procedures. Nancy, you have a comment? You're muted, I can't hear you.
Just wondering who the gentleman is off camera asking questions.
I'm the town manager.
Your name?
Doug Finch, I'm the town manager.
Thank you.
Michael, you also had a question?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, we've heard that the goal is to try to end as soon as possible. We try to end at 9, we try to end at 9:30, we try to be good neighbors, but yet the track rolls on till 11 o'clock. I mean, I'm gonna say, let me again be a little blunt, but why don't you try to end at 6 o'clock and roll on until 9 o'clock? And it's been a year now. It was almost exactly a year ago this was brought to the board. And as far as I can tell, I don't know what the board has done about this. I would ask, I'm not a board member and I can't make any motions like this, but could the board look into a noise ordinance? City has a noise ordinance. Is the town able to create a noise ordinance for a reasonable volume at a reasonable time? I mean, even to say that 10 o'clock is the absolute cutoff and thou shalt not be noise past 10 o'clock. Also in the minutes from last year, folks pointed out that, well, we need an enforceable ordinance. Of course you do. And again, I can't write that or even suggest it to you, but certainly, you know, sitting here and coming back a year from now and having the same discussion that happened a year ago is extremely frustrating to everyone. I mean, I think someone has to take some steps. I don't see any reason why things can't be shifted slightly. If you can't start in the middle of the afternoon, fine, but start a few hours early. Yeah.
You know, we do always work on these things, and we tend to hear, I mean, the people that are here are one side of the story. We also have other people to consider. Right? So it's not easy. It's easy to just say, we're just going to do whatever. So we have to take all these things into consideration, and we do. And I'm thinking maybe we need to have a committee specific. My idea is a committee specifically to look into this in terms of whether a noise ordinance would be, proper. We have just as many people who are in favor of the racing, if not more. So, you know, it's not an easy thing. I mean, it's easy for you to say, just make it stop. It's not easy for us to solve the problem. And that doesn't mean we're not trying. All of us, that's why we're here. We have to try and figure a way so that everyone that lives within, earshot of the racetrack can have a peaceful as possible and try to keep this tradition that's been the tradition in Canandaigua going without hurting other people. If it were easy, we would have taken care of it already. It's not that easy. And I have myself, and I know many of us on the board have been thinking of things to do. We've worked with the track and they've been trying to keep to the timelines. I'm not a sound expert. Maybe we need to get somebody who is a sound expert. So that's what I'm thinking. So it's not fair to say that we're doing nothing. We are doing things. We're always doing things. And so from my perspective, what I intend to do is see if there's people that be willing to get on a committee and, have with input from Paul and Casey and work as a team and take everyone's interest into consideration as much as we possibly can. There are people that aren't going to be happy, but that's the nature of what we do. One way or another, people are not going to be happy. All we can do is try to do the best we can, and that's what we're here to do. So I don't know if my other town board members want to be heard on that, but that's my take on it.
May I be heard for just a moment? Town Attorney Chris Nadler here. And Supervisor, I think you just made a very good point. The town has been addressing this. I know the members of the board and yourself, as well as the town manager, have been working hard with neighbors and the track promoter to try and get this resolved. The issue under New York state law, we can write a noise ordinance, but it won't be enforceable in this instance because this is a pre-existing non-conforming use. And I think I support your suggestion that we explore a committee to come up with some solutions, but a noise ordinance will keep a lot of noise out of the town, but it won't keep this noise out of the town. And that's something that I think everybody has to keep in mind here. And I commend all of the neighbors on the level of discourse tonight that's been very civilized, and as well as the track promoter and the county fair folks. But a noise ordinance will not solve this particular problem in the town of Canandaigua. It's a private, noise levels can be a nuisance under New York state law, and that's a private right of action. But the town of Canandaigua doesn't actually have a method by which to enforce noise levels in this particular situation. And I've been working with the town manager and the development department staff on this for a couple of years now, several years. And there is, based on my research and conversations with the state, there's no mechanism by which the town can enforce noise levels here.
Kathy,
I have a response to that.
Kathy,
I have a response to that.
Doug, I can't hear you.
Yeah, we've got a couple of people talking. I think they're trying to chime in and respond to Chris, but if
Yeah,
I
I am.
for a second. So Kathy, and just so the town board's aware, so first of all, I've had more complaints about the racetrack this year than any year since I've been your town manager. And Paul mentioned that it's not all related to sound and noise and dust and all that. There's other things. But the one thing I have to thank both Paul and Casey is every time I called you, you've picked up the phone. I do appreciate that. Thank you. Even though we may hang up the phone and we may be agitated with each other, I appreciate you guys picking up the phone. The second thing is because we have had so many comments and complaints, I've reached out to a couple of different entities, one of which in particular, I'm waiting for information back to be able to share with the board. I reached out to Dirt Motorsports. I haven't had any response from them. I reached out to NASCAR. NASCAR actually is providing some information for us on how local municipalities interact with a local track, and maybe some ideas, maybe some suggestions. And then I think the one that more interestingly that I'm waiting for is the North Carolina League of Municipalities. And I've reached out to them. Obviously, there's a lot of racetracks in North Carolina. Again, it's not looking to shut down the racetrack. It's how can we find a balance so that everybody can be a little bit more happy, and maybe not everybody's satisfied, but maybe we can find a solution. And the person who specializes in that has been furloughed and is back next Monday. So I'm hoping to have information for you, but I just don't have it yet. So hopefully I'll be able to have that, in the next couple of weeks for you, that I'll be able to share that with you. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions of the board members if you guys have any of me. So. Kathy?
I do not have any more questions at this point. I think it's an ongoing discussion and going to be ongoing for quite some time. And Chris, thanks for, clarifying in terms of private versus public and what we can pass ordinances on. So, but that's not the end of the inquiry in terms of, like we said, try to work together on this. So I don't know if any other board member has any thoughts that they'd like to share. Okay, I don't see anybody else on the board. This conversation obviously is going to continue. I felt it was important to have this meeting to let you know that, it's not over. When we've been in constant contact with Paul and Casey, trying to work this out, and we'll continue to do that. In terms of the meeting, we will, continue this conversation at another time. I don't know, Doug, does anybody else there want to be heard?
Sylvia, you wanted to say something?
You're muted, Sylvia.
Anybody else in the room? Sylvia, I think, is trying to say something, but she's muted.
Yep.
Yeah, a couple of things. We talked about this being compromised and so that everybody could be happy. But right now, the reason that we're having this meeting is because one group of people who favor racing are very happy with what's going on or are content with what's going on, considering everything right now. And this group of people who have to listen to the noise but not enjoy the racing or be part of the racing are very unhappy. That's why we're having this meeting.
Right.
And secondly, the other thing that I understand that this is grandfathered in. I think that's what Mr. Nadler was saying, basically. So there's nothing that can be done about the noise. We are always going to hear the noise. We have always heard the noise, but it is the amount of noise and the reoccurrence of the noise that has increased that we hear, and it's just so much louder, or we wouldn't be saying anything. I wouldn't be saying anything, for sure.
I think also what Mr. Nadler is saying is, there may be other,
yes,
in terms of what we can do as a town, right? What we can legislate. We can't fix everything by passing an ordinance. So there may be other, other things that can be done, but in terms of this.
And I think also, that's what Mike was saying, is like there has to be some sort of compromise, because we're still left at the short end of the stick. I'm looking at Justicia like this, and that's what's going on right now.
I agree. That's why we're here. That's, easy just to say we can't do anything about it. But we'll, that's.
Okay, thank you.
Will we have another meeting about this? A public meeting?
There's always conversations about it. We don't have to necessarily have a meeting. Like I said, I would like to try to have some sort of, I'm one person, so I can't make decisions for the whole board, but my idea maybe is to have a committee to work on this specifically.
I didn't see this publicized in the newspaper about this meeting, so I was wondering if the next time there's a public meeting, we could have that put on the agenda and put on the newspaper.
Yeah, I think it was publicized as it always is, and I didn't clarify that with Jean Chrisman, which we did the roll call. But Jean, was it properly advertised? If she's still here?
Yes, it was, and it went out through all of our normal channels.
So all of that, it's always on our website and it's always published. We have to do that by law. So.
All right, thank you.
All right, so I think we're going to move along here. We have no public hearings, no resolutions. Do we have an executive session requested at all?
No, not to me.
All right, so if anyone wants to make a motion for an adjournment,
So moved. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, everyone. I really do appreciate your input.